Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's Faculty Student Hangout with Professor Penny Schmidt. I'm Margaret Ioannidis, the Associate Dean of Strategy and Innovation here at Florida Coastal School of Law. We are so excited with all of you who are able to participate live from around the world, and depending on where you are, good morning, good evening, good afternoon. We have a wonderful presentation that Professor Schmidt has put together today, and I will only be on at the beginning and at the end, but during the course of our presentation, we'll be using the chat feature as well to be able to communicate. So before we get started with the presentation, a couple of very basic housekeeping rules. We are recording today's presentation, and we will send a link of the recording along with a copy of the slide deck to everyone who registered for today's event, as well as to all of our logistics and transportation students. We ask that you hold all of your questions until the end of Professor Schmidt's presentations. During that time, we will have a live question and answer period, and at that time, you will be able to unmute your microphones and ask any questions to Professor Schmidt. If you have questions during the course of her presentation, please use the chat feature on the left-hand side of the screen. You can type in your message, and if you send it only to the presenters, the only ones who will see that are Professor Schmidt and myself. Otherwise, if you use the chat feature without that limitation, it will go out to everyone who's participating in today's webinar. So without further ado, we will go ahead and get started. We're very proud to have Professor Penny Schmidt with us here today. She is one of the professors in our Logistics and Transportation program here at Florida Coastal School of Law, and actually she is teaching in the program next semester. She is teaching a course in trucking liability and regulatory compliance. Penny Schmidt is a partner with the law firm of Shute, Schmidt, and Noe, located here in Jacksonville, Florida. She obtained her Bachelor of Arts degree from the University of Florida and her law degree with honors from St. Thomas College of Law in 1992. This is going to take me a little while because she's so accomplished. She is a member of so many different organizations. So let's get started. Professor Schmidt is admitted to the Florida Bar and to the U.S. District Court for the Middle and Northern Districts of Florida. She is also a member of the Jacksonville Bar Association, the Jacksonville Association of Defense Counsel, the Florida Bar Trial Lawyer Section, the Florida Defense Lawyers Association, the Defense Research Institute, the Florida Circuit Civil Mediator Society, and the Florida Academy of Professional Mediators. She is also the past president of the Jacksonville Association of Defense Counsel and the past chairman of the ADR section of the Jacksonville Bar. She is also a current co-owner of and panel mediator with the Jacksonville Mediation Center. Mrs. Schmidt specializes in civil trial litigation and is a certified circuit civil mediator and certified arbitrator. Her main areas of concentration include personal injury, wrongful death, trucking litigation, insurance coverage issues, general civil trial litigation, construction defect litigation, and mediation. She's put together a wonderful presentation, and she will be focusing on the Tracy Morgan accident case. This is an outstanding presentation. And in addition, based on her bio, it's a great opportunity not only to ask her questions related to trucking liability and regulatory compliance, but also if you have any questions related to the area of mediation and alternative dispute resolution. So with that said, I will stop talking and turn things over to the wonderful Professor Schmidt.
Well, thank you so much, Margaret. I hope you do enjoy the presentation. I'm not sure if all of you know who Tracy Morgan is. If you've ever watched Saturday Night Live, he was on it for many, many years. And if you did watch it, I'm sure you know who he is. But he was in a tragic accident a few years back that created a lot of media coverage, and it involved a large truck. And so I thought the story was right for discussing trucking accidents, and specifically one of the courses that the law school has as part of the LL.M program that I'm participating in, which is trucking liability and regulatory compliance. And I think hearing the story of what happened hopefully will put in perspective for you the everyday type of incidents that various professionals, whether it be attorneys or others, play a role in trucking and how big the trucking industry really is. So with no further ado, let's go ahead and just talk about generally let me make this a little bit larger, why trucking accidents are different. Hopefully you've never been in a trucking accident, but I assume most of you have driven a vehicle before, and we've all driven on roads and encountered trucks, and hopefully your circumstances were all good, but we can all appreciate that they are much bigger than the average vehicle. They weigh a lot more than the average vehicle, and they carry heavy or wide loads. So when those vehicles are on the roadway, they usually take up the vast majority of their lane, and they don't have a lot of wiggle room. And sometimes those vehicles obviously are involved in accidents. Sometimes it is the truck driver's fault, sometimes it is not. But when trucks are in accidents, they can cause a lot of damage because of the reasons I mentioned, the size and weight. Again, just showing you a couple pictures. Again, hopefully you've never seen these firsthand, things like this, but again, trucking accidents can be very bad. They usually can cause property damage and damage to other vehicles, as well as the truck itself. Large trucks carry fuel. Sometimes they're actually hauling fuel, and you can appreciate that or other hazardous materials they may be hauling can escape in an accident and can create a lot of environmental consequences. So there's a lot of different aspects to trucking accidents versus your everyday typical passenger vehicle. Also, the laws that govern these accidents and the trucks and truck drivers are very unique. Most of these trucks travel what we call interstate, meaning they cross lines of the various states in the United States, and that creates federal regulation and oversight on these vehicles. And the class that Florida Coastal puts on goes through that. Anybody working in this industry needs to understand both state laws that would be applicable as well as all the federal regulatory laws. So if you are going to play a role in investigating or handling trucking accidents, or if you're dealing with safety to try to prevent these types of accidents, you need to have some knowledge. You need to have some understanding of what is transportation law. As I mentioned before, what are the laws that govern it, and what vehicles, companies, and individuals fall within those parameters of the law. Again, the LL.M program here addresses that as part of their Transportation and Logistics LL.M program. And trucking is just part of that program. Now, in the class program at Florida Coastal, we cover all these different areas. We talk about the different types of accidents that involve trucks, and we talk in detail about the different laws. One of the other big aspects is how to investigate these types of accidents in terms of trying to prevent them or minimizing the exposure for them. And the presentation today is really going to talk more on that latter part. You know, when there is an accident, how do you investigate it? How do you find out what really happened, and what laws come into play in doing that? So hopefully after this presentation, you'll understand a little bit more about trucking accidents in general and the post-accident aftermath of them. So in terms of how to investigate an accident, was it the truck driver's fault? Was it someone else's fault? Or was it a variety of people's fault? And knowing what the obligations for the commercial driver is under the laws of that state or federally. Now, specifically in the Tracy Morgan case, as I mentioned, he's a comedian. He's well known for his role on Saturday Night Live. He was riding in a large limousine van, and his vehicle was involved in a significant accident with an 18-wheel tractor-trailer driven for Walmart. Tracy Morgan was significantly injured, and another passenger in the limousine died. Now, due to the significant injuries involved and the fact that Tracy Morgan is well known as a celebrity, there was quite a bit of media attention about this accident. Also, as you can appreciate, Walmart, being a large retailer, also attracted quite a bit of media attention to this accident. Some of the issues in this accident are very commonplace in any type of trucking accident in terms of investigation, but there were some unique issues that we'll talk about. So who were the participants in this accident? Well, you had Tracy Morgan. You had a gentleman by the name of James McNair, who unfortunately died in the accident, and Kevin Roper was the driver for Walmart. Now, the individual I don't have up here, but obviously is a party in all of this, was the driver of the limousine van. And I'll talk about that in a minute. This is just a rough scale drawing of this accident. It occurred back in June, and you can see the black limousine van depicted there. And so the accident vehicle is right here. It pushed the black vehicle into another vehicle. So it was a multi-vehicle accident. And the damage to the limousine van was very significant. The emergency rescue people had a lot of difficulty and challenges even removing the people from the van. Now, what happened? This was an accident that occurred at 1 a.m. on a New Jersey interstate. The National Transportation Safety Board, which again is one of the federal agencies that oversee commercial drivers and trucks and other commercial vehicles, when an accident like this happens, sometimes that agency is brought in to play a role in the investigation. And their investigation revealed that Walmart's driver had not slept in more than 24 hours. Now, although the driver disputed that, that was the investigation from the Transportation Board. I have not seen the actual board's report, but the information that's been leaked out is that some of the evidence that the board relied upon was the fact that the driver had been posting fairly consistently for over 24 hours. And again, the driver denied that and denied that these social media accounts were not his. And this brings us to a big point here. We're all familiar, because we're drivers on the roadway of regular vehicles, that accidents can occur. So how do you find out in any accident, but specifically in trucking accidents, what really went on? And again, this particular slide and the board's investigation, using social media as a key piece of their evidence, is very telling, and it's very current in today's industry and in the law. And so in addition to records of the truck driver actually driving, going into various weigh stations and other things, they were able to document through these social media posts that, at least according to them, the evidence suggested he had been up and that fatigue or played a role in this accident, or he fell asleep. After the accident, there was a civil suit, and Tracy Morgan sued Walmart for negligence. McNair's family also sued Walmart for the wrongful death, and those matters ended up settling for an undisclosed amount. I will say that there were media statements after the settlement where the CEO of Walmart gave a statement that they were committed to doing the right thing, and they worked closely with the McNair family and Mr. Morgan to resolve the cases quickly and amicably, and they were deeply sorry that one of their trucks was involved. And if you heard that last part, they were deeply sorry that one of their trucks was involved. They didn't say that they were accepting fault, but they were trying to make the best of a bad public relations situation. This created, obviously, a lot of negative press for Walmart and its drivers. Similarly, after that confidential settlement, Tracy Morgan released a statement that Walmart did right by him and his family, and he was grateful that the case could be resolved. So the civil suit against Walmart and its drivers is over. But there is a criminal case. And clearly, not every trucking accident has criminal implications, but this particular accident does, and some of them can. The criminal case has not yet gone to trial. Mr. Roper pled not guilty. He is charged with first-degree aggravated manslaughter and 8 counts of aggravated assault. If he is convicted, he could be in jail for more than 20 years. There's been a lot of motion filing in that case that they're trying to change venue because of all the media attention They don't believe Mr. Broker can get a fair trial where it is currently, and so that's delayed the process, and it has not yet gone to trial. So when we talk about accidents like Tracy Morgan's accident or any type of trucking accident, that involves two pieces to it. You have the investigation piece where you're gathering evidence, like I mentioned before, whether that be social media or other data. The other part is reconstruction, which generally attorneys such as myself need to retain what we call expert witnesses that are typically engineers, or other professionals that take the investigation or take those pieces of evidence and put them together based upon their skill and expertise and reconstruct the accident to determine what really happened, or at least to make their best educated opinion on that. Some of the investigation is obviously from witnesses. Accidents typically have some witnesses. Cell phone records, were people on the phone at the time of the accident? Were either of the drivers on the phone? Were they texting? Had they received a text? Did that play a role? Social media. Black box information. Most newer vehicles, and I mean passenger vehicles, but many trucks have what I'll loosely call a black box. And what that is, it's a computer module in the vehicle that records data. And the scope of the data that it records can vary from vehicle to vehicle. But generally, these black boxes, especially on trucks, can give very good information about key data in the seconds before an accident. It will tell things such as speed. How long have they been traveling at this speed? Was the truck driver using cruise control or not? When did the truck driver, relative to the impact, first start applying his brakes or taking some evasive maneuver? All of that helps a reconstruction engineer determine whether the actions of the driver were reasonable. Was he speeding? Did that contribute to the accident? Did he take proper evasive action when confronted with a hazard? In the Tracy Morgan case, the facts were that there was some road construction on this stretch of the highway in New Jersey, and that there were signs posted that construction ahead, slow down. And in fact, the speed limit in that area was 45 miles an hour. But the evidence that the National Safety Board found is that the driver of the Walmart truck was traveling at 65 miles an hour, and that at the time his vehicle actually collided with the limousine van, the speed was somewhere around 50 miles an hour, which says that he obviously tried to slow at some point, but too late to make any meaningful difference. When a very large, heavy tractor trailer hits another vehicle at 50 miles an hour, it's going to cause significant damage. The investigation also revealed that the limousine van, because of its size and its passengers, that it could constitute a commercial vehicle that would fall under these same regulations that commercial trucks do. They didn't say anything about the limousine van driver really doing anything wrong specifically, but they did say that the limousine van passengers were not seat belted, and that contributed to some of the injuries. They also found that this limousine van had been modified in such a way, I believe, due to an entertainment system or center in the limousine compartment in the back where the passengers were, and that contributed to the emergency responders not being able to get to the victims as quickly as possible. And based upon the investigation, the National Safety Board had recommended that there be some sort of regulation and training to encourage passengers in these types of vehicles to use their seatbelts, and also encourage the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration to require a second exit on these types of vehicles. They felt, again, that they were limited because of the nature of the crash and the damage. The ability to get inside the van was limited by a variety of reasons. And so it wasn't just the Walmart truck that was part of this investigation. Obviously, the National Safety Board was looking at all the participants, including the driver of the limousine van, but ultimately it was their determination that it was speeding and fatigue and inattentiveness on the part of the Walmart driver that was the cause. As I mentioned before, reconstruction usually is with various experts, including engineers, and that would entail going to the actual scene of the accident and seeing what kind of skid marks or other visual evidence may be out at the scene that would help put the pieces of the puzzle together. It would include inspecting the vehicle, looking at the damage. Where was the damage? Does that correspond with what the witnesses are saying and what the other evidence is saying? Looking at the weather. Did the weather or the roadway conditions contribute at all to the accident? Other things are the mechanical components on a vehicle. Did the vehicles have proper brakes, tires, and things like that? And whether that played a role in the accident and reconstruction. So again, determining what happened, in addition to doing the investigation and the reconstruction, really, with accidents of a significant magnitude, require a very quick response. As you could appreciate, skid marks on a roadway or debris that's left in the road, those things are going to disappear over a short amount of time, especially if it starts raining afterward. So getting to an accident scene, having all the key people involved, if you're going to investigate an accident like this, whether you're with a police agency, an insurance company, a trucking company, or an attorney's office, everybody wants to get to the evidence as soon as possible so that evidence is not lost. Earlier I mentioned that I talked about black boxes, and the data that you can get from them can be very, very important in the reconstruction of an accident. The big thing about them, though, is if most of them have an override component, meaning that if the truck is driven after the accident, or in some cases, even if the ignition is turned on, all of that good data can be erased. So a big part of my job in being an attorney, generally representing trucking companies or the insurers or companies that employ them or insure them, is this quick response. We want all the evidence, good and bad. We want to make sure we preserve it. And one of the concepts under the law that we have to be concerned with in cases like this is called spoliation of evidence. So if the truck driver, the trucking company, doesn't take reasonable efforts to preserve the black box data and other evidence, it could be argued by the Tracy Morgans of the world that are injured in accidents that we lost evidence or we spoliated evidence. And so that can have some adverse consequences in legal cases. So getting to the scene, getting on the evidence, getting everybody involved as soon as possible is very, very key. I don't know what all of your backgrounds are or what you really want to do in a career path, but when we talk about transportation law, of which trucking is a large component of that, there is a variety of jobs out there. My world is in the legal world as an attorney. I don't do the criminal aspects, but my role is in the civil realm. So whether it's a trucking company, I don't do Walmart work, but if Walmart were to call me about a bad accident, one of my jobs is to get the necessary team together to get on the investigation and reconstruction as soon as possible so that we can ultimately figure out what we think happened and assess the damage exposure, whether it be, unfortunately, personal injuries, wrongful death of someone, or property or environmental issues. So attorneys like me, that's what they would do generally in the trucking industry. Obviously, as a criminal lawyer, you could either be prosecuting like they're prosecuting Kevin Roper or defending him in the case. Again, I've never done criminal, so I'm not going to go too far out on a limb here, but we can all appreciate just from our TV watching that in a criminal trial, there is a higher burden of proof against a defendant. And in this case, I've talked to you about the fact that there was a National Transportation Safety Board investigation, and it revealed various things. You know, in a civil trial and a criminal trial, typically those types of reports would not be coming in as evidence. So the case has to be proved against Mr. Roper, that he did something that justified a criminal conviction. Clearly, if there was social media posts out there and they could authenticate that evidence, that could be something. Obviously, eyewitnesses. And the investigator could come in to talk and give opinions about measurements and various things that he did to reach various conclusions. But typically, the report in and of itself is not going to come in. The parties are going to have to prove their case through witnesses and documentary evidence. The other type of attorneys that are involved in these types of things are in-house attorneys. You may be an in-house attorney for an insurance company or a truck leasing company or a trucking company. You may appreciate there are companies called logistics companies, and those companies typically are involved in warehousing the goods that are transported by truck, and they a lot of times have in-house counsel as well. Paralegals that work in the legal field or work in-house for these companies. Various insurance claims representatives. If you work in the insurance industry, usually if you're going to be handling trucking cases, you usually are going to have a little more experience because of the magnitude that these cases can present in terms of damage exposure. A lot of law enforcement people are involved, obviously, in investigating accidents from the police side. When someone dies in an accident, usually it triggers a whole other agency that create their own investigation. With significant enough accidents like this one, you know, the National Transportation Safety Board was involved. And then there's the whole component of media coverage of all of this. Now, within all of that, there are a lot of other jobs. If you work for the logistical company, you may work in the world of trucking and not have a law degree at all. Many people work in this field that have no legal education per se. Obviously, it's on-the-job training. They learn the regulations that apply. You have a lot of people in safety departments within trucking companies that their job is to make sure their company and their drivers are in compliance with all the regulations and to keep their vehicles and drivers safe. That's their goal. So there are a lot of job opportunities out there, both for lawyers and non-lawyers, and I think that's what kind of makes this industry interesting, is the variety of people involved with various backgrounds. And some of these I touched on before: transportation, federal jobs, state jobs, as well as for private companies. The last couple things I wanted to say before we get to questions, that so this case is still ongoing, and although it had some unique features, you know, unfortunately, it's a typical accident and in the trucking world, and so the needs to assess the evidence and to investigate and reconstruct are common in this accident as with many others. And so if there's any questions, I would be happy to answer them, or try to.
So you see, everyone, wasn't I right that this was going to be a great presentation? Professor Schmidt, thank you. That was absolutely wonderful. I have a couple of things jotted down that I'd like to ask and comments I'd like to make. But before I start talking, I wanted to open it up to everyone who's participating to see if you have any questions for Professor Schmidt, whether related to the topic of her presentation, you know, this field of law, trucking liability and regulatory compliance, her background in mediation, and careers in, you know, in this industry. While people are thinking of questions, Professor Schmidt, I wanted to put out there, a lot of the students that are participating are in our U.S. Law LL.M program. And so as you were presenting, you know, your topic, I thought about some of the courses in our curriculum. So for those of you out there that are taking civil procedure, that are taking evidence, even criminal law and procedure, some of the points that were raised in today's presentation are, show kind of the real world application of what you're covering in each one of those classes. For those of you who are in the logistics and transportation program, Professor Schmidt is actually teaching the 2-credit course, trucking liability and regulatory compliance, next semester. And so if you found this interesting, that might be a course that you would like to register for as well. I'm going to pause and see if there are any questions. Okay, I have a question for you, Professor Schmidt. When you covered the different job opportunities, what advice would you have as students go into different job search databases? What types of keywords would they use? Are these compliance officer jobs, safety jobs? Is it transportation lawyer? What would you type in to try to see what job opportunities come up?
Transportation law would be a good search item. Trucking logistics is another one. If you were to go the insurance route of it, if you wanted to work from the insurance company side, then likely those same searches wouldn't go into that. There are certain insurance companies that are more well known, and you could figure this out from doing some internet searches, that a large book of their business is trucking companies. So if you were interested on the insurance side, and you can target in terms of your application or searches to those various insurance companies. Just trucking companies, there's a ton of them out there. We've all, again, driven by them. We've seen names on the side of them. You may live in an area that that there's a large trucking company. Those would be resources just to go directly to them, what opportunities they have on their website. From the federal government side, yes, there's different agencies, both law enforcement and just enforcement, and there's probably more jobs than I can even imagine. It is the federal government. So I think there would be a lot of opportunities there. Personally, I don't know how to specifically search within the federal world, but I know there's got to be those search engines out there that would allow them to search for that.
Wonderful. Thank you. I believe it's USA Jobs. I think there might be a website for that, but we can certainly get that information for anyone who's participating. If you would like more information on that, please just reach out to me or to a member of the LL.M team, and we can get you the website for searching for jobs with the federal government. It looks like we've had a question that came in. It says, we can assume that liability, causation, and damages were persuasively addressed by Tracy Morgan and other plaintiffs in the negligence claim in order to reach a settlement agreement. However, was Walmart's best defense that the plaintiffs had no seatbelts on?
Since it settled so quickly, and we don't know what all the evidence was, obviously Mr. Roper was denying that some of this evidence involved him. Personally, I believe that it was a bad damage case that had bad media attention and potentially could have large exposure if it was true that the driver had stayed up over 24 hours. And so I really believe that Walmart wanted to cut its losses, end it as soon as possible, and to protect its public image from this kind of stuff. And that reminds me of something else. I mean, I'm not in advertising or marketing, but large companies like Walmart have people that respond to things just like this, bad accidents, trucking accidents, and knowing how to deal with that. And that's a whole other branch of professions. But, in my experience, and this may surprise you, but when someone's not wearing a seatbelt, it really doesn't. Juries typically don't penalize them as much as you might think. Every case is a little bit different. And so it is a factor. You always, as on the defense side or factoring that, trying to assess, would these people have sustained the same type of injuries had they been belted? And that's a big question mark right there. This is a really bad accident. Seatbelt or no seatbelt, you probably were going to get hurt. Now, the extent of that, would the gentleman have passed away? That's unclear, and no evidence has really come out on that. So I'm sure Walmart had some defenses, at least they thought they did, but I think given the big picture, they felt it in their best interest to settle it quietly and quickly.
And that leads to a broader question, and that was an excellent question. Thank you for submitting that. How many, in your experience, as you've worked in civil litigation, you do mediation as well, and ADR, how often is it that, even if a company would have defenses, that they opt to settle short of going to trial, and what type of considerations do they take into account?
I work for a lot of bigger companies, and across the board, they don't like going to trial. That doesn't mean they won't in the right case, but they try their best to settle cases. Now, it may not be early as the Tracy Morgan settlement. It may be after a lot of discovery and actually depositions and things like that in the court process, but they're always going to try very hard to settle the case. And why do they do that? Well, the reason any case is settled versus going to trial, it creates certainty. They know the result. It saves money. They can stop paying people like me to go try a case, which can be very expensive. I mentioned before, engineers and other expert witnesses. They're very critical and key in these cases, but they're very expensive. So expense, and the other factor, like I think we see in the Walmart case, is the public image. Do we want that tarnished by airing dirty laundry, per se, in the courtroom, which are generally open forums? Some people on jurors, I think everybody on some level has some biases just based upon their life experience. And, trucks typically aren't thought of as highly maybe as some other things. Truck drivers, we've all kind of gone up along a truck, and maybe they felt they got a little too close to us, and it made us nervous. And so, the trucking industry is aware of the everyday perception of the industry, and they try to settle cases as much as they can, and they use the mediation format, a forum, in large part to do that.
Excellent, thank you. And while we're waiting for more questions to come in, can you give us a little bit of background as far as what drew you into this field of law?
Well, like a lot of things, you fall into things. Before I went to law school, I was a paralegal. I started out as a secretary in college and supported myself in that way. And I got tired of sitting on that side of the desk and thought, I want to go to law school. And so I started working for a law firm that mainly did what we call insurance defense, meaning an insurance company hires you to defend their insured. And my first experiences was more with State Farm insurance. And so it was the passenger vehicles, you or I might be insured by State Farm, and if one of us has an accident, part of your insurance coverage pays for lawyers if you get sued. And so I did that for quite a few years, and then I started working with insurance companies that insured big companies and insured trucking companies. And just over time, I got more involved in that, and how it became more of a specialization, like I said, I just kind of fell into it, but it definitely has been a long process. I mean, I think of what I know now, and I think there's so much more I could know and should know, but how much I didn't know then, years ago. And it just takes time, experience. Every accident I investigate, every trucking case I have, I learn something from it that I try to bring forward in the next case. So that's really how I got into it. It wasn't something, I grew up going, I want to get into trucking law. It's just something kind of I fell into.
Excellent, thank you. Are there any other questions out there from participants? Well, we're waiting for some questions to come up. We just wanted to cover a couple of basic housekeeping. If anyone has questions after today's event, please feel free to reach out to any one of us. Also, Professor Schmidt teaches here at Florida Coastal, not only in the logistics program, but I believe you're also teaching mediation, right? Is that correct?
Right, mediation and arbitration. At Coastal, They refer to it as alternative dispute resolution. That's their course.
Perfect. So you're able also to reach out directly to Professor Schmidt through her Florida Coastal email. We have the contact information for each member of our team here as well. Our next speaker series event is coming up on September 26th. This event is actually open to the public, so we encourage all of you to, not only to participate, but to invite your friends as well. Professor Jenkins, who teaches both torts and evidence in our U.S. Law LL.M program, is the guest speaker, and he's going to be focusing on depositions, which are probably a very critical piece when you're dealing with these trucking cases as well. So for any of you interested in the field of litigation, this would definitely be an event worth participating in. In addition to that, based on input from our students and interest in getting more information related to the MPRE and bar preparation, we actually have two events that are scheduled. One on October 21st, Professor Scales, who teaches the professional responsibility course, will be doing a presentation related specifically to the MPRE, Multi-State Professional Responsibility Exam. And on November 9th, actually, Professor Helsing, who teaches administrative law in our logistics and transportation program and has also been an academic success counselor and bar prep coach here at Florida Coastal, will be presenting on the bar examination and bar exam test taking strategies as well. So we do have those two events coming up, and so just be on the lookout for additional information on each one of those. Also, a couple of basic housekeeping rules. Just remember, for those of you who are in the U.S. Law program, today, September 15th, is the last day of the drop add period. So you'll want to make sure, if you want to drop any courses, please feel free to reach out to any of us. Again, our contact information is right here. Please feel free to reach out to any of us to drop the courses, or you can also drop them through the portal directly, through the student portal. Also, for logistics and transportation students, that drop add period ended already. It was on September 12th. Make sure you are logging your attendance through completion of the attendance quizzes in each one of your courses. And if you can, please be on the lookout for review sessions in each of your courses. Typically, the first review session in each course is right around the middle of the semester, so that would be right around October. So be on the lookout for additional information on that as well. And it looks, Professor Schmidt, like we've gotten another question. Are you able to see the question?
See here. Oh, I see it now, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So the question is, vicarious liability is still an issue. However, if Walmart had made sure that the driver actually followed the proper rest regulation, do you think the settlement outcome could have changed? I don't really think so. What I do know is that there was some evidence that Walmart had good training programs, as you would hopefully expect from a big company like that. So they trained their drivers regularly. They had certain check marks in place. They had trained him on fatigue and not driving fatigued. But unfortunately, you can't control what people do on their off time, unless you have a private investigator go home with your truck drivers. And what we saw is he was not over the legal limit necessarily of driving, but he just hadn't slept, or at least that was the evidence. So, yes, Walmart, as for vicarious responsibilities, because they're his employer, they're going to be liable, their pocketbook's going to be liable for any damages that their employee caused. In this case, if it had not settled, as with a lot of ugly trucking litigation cases, the discovery can get very invasive. Just looking at anything and everything in terms of the safety program at Walmart, their training program, this driver's record. And so it could only, in my mind, get worse for Walmart if they show that maybe they missed a couple of their internal protocols in terms of things. It may have not made a difference at all in terms of this accident, but it could open them up potentially to punitive damages depending on the jurisdiction. And so Walmart was going to have to pay. I think that was known. And again, getting that certainty that maybe they wouldn't get sued for negligent hiring, negligent supervision, and these other legal theories that we discussed in the course would be another incentive to shut the case down as soon as possible.
That's
I hope that
another
was
great, excellent question, and thank you, Professor Schmidt. Great answer as well. I think we just have a few minutes left for today's webinar. Are there any final questions? All right, so with that said, Professor Schmidt, again, a wonderful presentation. Thank you for taking the time to not only to present today, but for all the time that we know went into putting together the PowerPoint slides and working with us on, on this platform as well. We really appreciate all that you do. And for those of you who joined us live from around the world, thank you. We know for some of you it is the middle of the night, so thank you for joining us from near and far. And for those of you who have listened to the recording of today's event, thank you for joining us all the way through to the end. We encourage you to just please reach out to us with any questions that you have. We're here to help you, and we're looking forward to a great semester. Thank you.
Thank you, Margaret. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks. Bye-bye.